Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Class Zero Soldiers podcast. I'm your host, Zer0.exe, but you can call me Zero, and I'm joined by my good friend, SoldierByNight, aka Soldier. What's new with you, Sol?
Oh, well, got off work and it's a pretty good day. We're in the middle of the week, I think. Wednesdays are anything can happen day for any of you old school Mickey Mouse Club fans. But yeah, I guess gaming wise, since this is totally about gaming, I've been playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, trying to get all the requests complete because I am by no means a completionist, but when it comes to uh, I don't know, when it comes to games that have really like swept me off, I wanna do what I can. How about you? How are you, and what are you up to?
Yeah, man, it's been going good. It's my second day off, so today's technically my Sunday here. I have to get back to the grind tomorrow, but before I do that, I'm hoping to get on some more Elden Ring. I know you're talking about Pokemon Legends really enthralling you. That Elden Ring has been that game for me, and it keeps drawing me back. And I know what you mean. When a game gets you sucked in like that, you just want to absorb all the content and just do everything there is to do in the game. And it's just so fun to have so much to do with the game that you're enjoying so much. And yeah, that's pretty much been what I've been up to. Just constant Elden Ring 24/7 when I'm not at work.
Hey, I mean, it's the game of the year, projected game of the year. Excuse me.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Because of some news that we'll talk about here in a bit. Yeah, I see what you did there. A little foreshadowing there. Cool. So let's hop right into it here. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to start off by talking about some Switch Pro rumors, a little bit of news about the upcoming successor mid-cycle refresh. We're still not really sure what to call it. If I was a betting man, my money would be on kind of a mid-cycle refresh type of console. I feel like the way that the Switch is selling hotcakes and the games that are coming out for it, they wouldn't want to have to hit the reset button and start over from scratch. And historically, Nintendo doesn't really like doing that anyway. With going from Wii U to Switch, the only reason they didn't have backwards compatibility is because it was a different format entirely, going from like disc to cartridge. But historically, Nintendo has always included backwards compatibility for their new consoles whenever it was feasible. Obviously, there are exceptions. Like I said, Wii U to Switch, N64 to the GameCube. But in general, they like being able to carry that legacy library forward. And if this is indeed a mid-cycle refresh, getting us what we need with the 4K and all that other good stuff, then yeah, we're probably still going to be able to play all our Switch games. And they've said they wanted to extend this cycle by about 10 to 11 years. I know the Nintendo president said that this we're about in the middle of the Switch's life cycle, which is insane to me.
these cycles get longer and longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nintendo has usually been pretty much like clockwork when it comes to their new consoles. You could go back every console, and the successor will always come out in either year 5 or year 6 after that console launch. So we are in year 5 of the Switch now. So I guess it kind of hits both points. If we get a new Switch revision, that kind of lines up with how often they like to do that with their timetables for a new console. But it technically wouldn't be a new console because it's still part of the Switch family. So they're still also sticking to that whole we want this life cycle to last twice as long, and we're halfway through it. So they're kind of in a good spot right now, and I think it's time. I think it's time to get a new console out on the market. But the beef, the meat and potatoes of the rumor that we want to talk about is the fact that, unfortunately, you never want to hear this, but Nvidia was victim of a big hacking attack, a ransomware, and a lot of their internal documents got leaked, which is horrible. A lot of employee information is out there, which is just awful. You never want to hear something like that. But in addition to that, they also had a lot of internal company files, and one of the things that was mentioned was a new API called NVN2. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Soul, but Nintendo Switch uses an API called NVN.
No, I what is that one specifically for?
So that's just the API that the Switch uses to translate the software and run it. So the fact
Okay.
that their internal files had an NVN2 is very interesting because they're developing a new API for it, but it's still keeping that NVN uh, naming scheme, the nomenclature for it, and they're also keeping the NX in their internal documents. So
Oh.
it's something new, but also still part of the Switch family. Also in those documents was references to things like deep learning super sampling or DLSS. That's a technology that basically uses an algorithm to upscale content rendered at a certain resolution to output it at a higher resolution than the game is actually producing at. So, for example, if it's putting out, if the game is rendering a 1080p image, deep learning super sampling will use an algorithm to transform that and upscale it to 1440p or even 4K in some cases. So it's letting the algorithm do the hard work so that you're not taxing the GPU nearly as much to get a better image out of it.
That's a good way to allocate the resources in order to be able to just squeeze the most out of what you can with the hardware.
You're damn right. I mean, that's probably the epitome of work smarter, not harder, right there. And just find a different way to get it done, and instead of having to brute force it with just raw power, which has never been Nintendo's bag, I think this is a good compromise. So we basically will have a way to output our games at 4K, even if they're not going to be rendered natively at 4K, which is fine by me as long as we're getting something better than what we have now. I think that's good. In addition to the DLSS, we also had mentions of ray tracing in there. So we could see some really fantastic lighting and shading and all sorts of good stuff when it comes to the graphic side of things. But I'm really excited about this. There's a lot of speculation that it could come out in the later half of this year, or that they're saving it for the launch of the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which, especially after the news we got earlier, that yeah, you never know, that could be the time frame they want to do it at. They always seem to launch new hardware with a big game. We got the Switch OLED with Metroid and Dread, so I don't know. Stars seem to be aligning. What do you think?
Honestly, I think we need that collection before, of course, but I
Are you
know.
talking Metroid Prime Trilogy?
I mean, it was on the Wii, and I know that was sought after for a while. And it's not the same because obviously there's motion controls with that one. But it was the only way you could play all of those. And ever since then, I mean, obviously mods on PC, but that's outside the question here. I guess for me, it's something I think would benefit everybody and even their own sales, especially Nintendo. It's like it would be sad if they missed out on that opportunity to really just, bring people up to date, man. I mean, there's all these generations that haven't played Metroid in a 3D space like that, and now that Metroid Dread has that, side scrolly, I said side scrolly, um, it's a classic Metroid feel, but obviously, you don't have people going back to the original Metroids playing those because I know that they differ a lot. Like there's similarities, but there's some things that don't age very well depending on the generation. And I think 3D would be great just because there were some hits. I mean, I have a friend of mine who even loves Other M for his own reasons, and I respect that. But most of the 3D games were very good, especially just Prime and Prime 2 Echoes or whatever it is. I didn't get around to that one personally, but um, yeah, it's good. I have a question since we were talking about the Switch Pro rumors and something that kind of came into my mind. If there were, I don't know, with the Switch 2 or Pro, um, would you, what are like three things that you would want that are just non-negotiable? You gotta have them.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. Well, I think one, I've been spoiled by the Switch OLED. It's got to have an OLED screen.
So
I don't
continue with
necessarily.
the OLED.
Right, exactly. They've already got their manufacturing process down. So honestly, just reusing the screen from the Switch OLED would be fine with me. It'd be a way for them to cut down costs too, since they're already
Okay.
mass producing them. And honestly, I don't think we need a higher resolution screen than 720p anyway, because It just doesn't need it. It looks fine as long as we can get games to render natively at 720p, because not every game is able to hit that mark, so it can look fuzzy. I think we'll be okay. And with the extra beef of a Switch successor, that shouldn't be a problem. So I think keeping a 720p, also keeping the OLED panel would be big. That would be my one thing. Um, I would definitely want every game. I don't know if this is more of a hardware question or software, but I would want every game to output minimum 1080p in docked mode. I think with where we are with the technology, it's been 5 years since the Switch came out, and even then, it was using a 3-year-old chip with the Tegra X1. So
Right.
with some more beefy hardware, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to hit 1080p consistently in docked. And then, of course, from there, with the DLSS and all the other stuff that they got going on in the background, it can upscale it and render it at higher resolution. But at least getting to 1080p, that would be kind of a big deal for me. And then software side, I would like some more. I don't know. I want some more customization within the console itself. Like we finally got folders, sort of, kind of, with the with the groups feature. But I also want
Yeah.
more themes. Like the 3DS had such a robust software system with the way you could customize your home screen. You could have themes basically rotate every time you opened the clamshell, it would be a different theme, and you could customize the
Yeah.
playlist of themes, and it would have its own music that would play and sound effects when you scroll or selected something. I want to see that back because that was
Would you
so much
would you
fun.
be okay with waiting like another 10 seconds before your console booted to have maybe a different or just a theme to really, generate? I feel like that's a small sacrifice, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be okay with that because here's the thing: my Switch never really fully powers off anyway. The sleep mode in it is fantastic. It doesn't really drain a lot of battery when you have a game on
And the
and you
games
just
don't
keep it.
slow down either. It's like,
Right.
it's good.
Why not? I know they're going for speed, and that's kind of why they took a minimalist approach, which is
Hmm.
that's fine. And not to mention, it was you have to remember from context of where Nintendo was at in 2016 and 2017, the Wii U was a commercial failure. They were recovering from that, and they were kind of throwing everything at the wall. And I think they saw the Switch as I don't want to say like a last gasp attempt, but kind of like well, let's see if this works. Now that we've refined the idea we had for the Wii U, let's just throw this together. That's why they worked with Nvidia to get the cheap parts, the off-the-shelf Tegra X1s that were probably dirt cheap for them to acquire. And from that context, it's like they weren't really putting a whole lot of work into the Switch in that aspect because they were more like, okay, let's see if we could get back in the green and then go from there. I don't know if they expected the Switch
Yeah.
to blow up the way it did. But now that it did, though, I think with whatever the Switch successor or the mid-gen refresh or whatever the case is, that because it's been such a huge success, they can put a little bit more, I don't know if effort's the right word, but a little bit more like fan requested features.
I agree. I mean, those are three really good points, by the way. You know, we've got the 1080p minimum, and you don't. You're primarily saying that docked, because you made it clear that the OLED's nice, 720p is good for battery life, and it doesn't really, it's like, hey, I'll take my cut on handheld, but when we go docked, let's be stable. If we can do 60, great, but please give me that 1080p. And then let's see. I'm
And then
I'm I'm,
themes was
I'm
the
feeling
last one.
themes, but you did say something in between themes, and I already I'm s- I'm so silly. OLED was your first thing, yeah. It's OLED, and then the 1080p, and then you wanted the themes. Themes always teased because it has a themes area. Like I would have preferred if
Right.
they just had like a light mode and a dark mode or something, because then it wouldn't have teased me. I would have just been like, okay,
Right.
great, there's not going to be themes this time around. But the fact that it says themes
Right.
is
The wording.
bothersome. It's the same wording they used before, but it's a totally different meaning for this platform.
It's like they did that when they were developing it and then just totally forgot that they put themes in the console. Like it's crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's different there, like maybe themes over there is a bit different than themes here, like maybe and they just directly translated it. It could be so many different things, or maybe they will do something. I mean, we did get an update. It's Nintendo. It's Nintendo.
We get folders, right? They march to the beat of their own drum. So yeah, we did finally get our folders 5 years later. Who's to say that they won't add themes a year from now?
Uh, I'll wait for it. I mean, what am I gonna do until then, right? I'll just open up my 3DS and give it some love this last year. Make sure you're putting in your funds, I guess, before the end of May, I
That's
think it
right.
is. Before that, I think you only have that much time.
It's essentially dying in May
Yeah.
because after that, it's just like redeeming codes for specific games. So yeah, if you actually want to buy stuff on the eShop, you got to get it done by May.
For the 3DS, and there's some really good games. Like I was talking to a friend yesterday, and shout out to Lucas if he's listening. But he had told me that the NES, um, like I think it was the NES version of Kirby's Dream Land, like that version on the 3DS. Yeah, he said the parallax just like blew him away, and he thought it was like such a cool effect to have with the retro. He's like, it's so close to kind of like what they're doing now with a lot of the 2D 3D games, and it's like so cool to have that experience with Kirby, you
I know
know.
exactly what you're talking about. That was kind of their subset of games where they called them, what do they call them? Like 3D classics, I think is what they were.
Ah,
They really
yep.
didn't live up to their full potential with that. Not each individual games, but in terms of the library. Like they were doing things like Twin Bee and a bunch of games like not many people have heard of. Kirby's Adventure was probably the most high profile game on that list, and it's the one they did the most things with in terms of the parallaxing and kind of the HD 2D. It was great. It ran great. It looked awesome. It was a nice way to replay the classics, and they really could have gone all in on that and made a lot of their first party NES games that way because I think they sold for like $8 each. So I mean, to have a way to repackage and sell a 25, 30-year-old ROM for $8, I mean, it was a better way to re-experience those games than just playing a ROM dump with like the NSO, Nintendo Switch Online, or just like just sold as is on the 3DS eShop. It was great. I love the way they did those.
Kirby's Adventure. That's what it is. I'm over here calling it Dreamland. I'm like, they're all Dreamland. That's how uneducated of me. Um, but I'm glad that we touched on that because I know that there's a lot of sales that have gone through with the 3DS eShop, but I got to tell you, the more that they made these announcements, the less those sales really
Oh,
started popping up. Like I think Christmas time was some of the best
yeah.
sales. Like they had all the SMT games for like $5 to $10. It was just like free, pretty much like free games
Almost.
everywhere, and
Capcom's big on them too. You can catch a Capcom sale pretty much every month.
that's good.
Ace Attorney games, the Mega Man Legacy collections came out on the
And
3DS.
you really just got to support it. I would say if you find a good sale, some games you want to play, go in there and even put a nice like $40 down, and then see what comes from it. Obviously, if you care about that.
The Pokemon games too.
Hopefully, those go on sale during that year. Um,
Even if they don't, if you're a Pokemon fan, hop on that since the 3DS versions of those games did have the Pokemon Home compatibility, so you can replay all of the older games and for Gen 1 and Gen 2 since they did do Gold, Silver, and I believe they did Crystal. I think, but for sure they have Gold and Silver on there, Red, Blue, Yellow. They had the home compatibility, so you can transfer your Pokemon over to the modern games, and you won't be able to pick those up here in a couple months. So if you're a Pokemon fan, definitely get on that.
and that is a yes on Crystal, by the way. I actually,
Ah, okay, cool. I have to go buy it.
I was one of those that waited. I was like, no, they're gonna come out with it. They just didn't want it to harm their own
Of
sales by
course.
releasing it at the same time. I was like, that's a totally reasonable business decision. So I understand. But um, do you know if Pokemon Bank is going to be available even after the?
Yeah, they're making it free actually. So if you have Pokemon Bank, you don't have to do the like $6 a year or whatever that subscription cost was. They're just going to make that service free if you already have it. And another thing too is that this is kind of a big question mark when it comes to like free games and demos. You can re-download anything you've already purchased after the shutdown. So it's kind of like Wii. You could still re-download Wii games even today, although
Right.
they did go offline for a while. I don't know if they're back up yet, but you can re-download anything you've already bought and free software you can download as well.
That's nice. I mean, I'm glad they can do that much. I mean, I
Right.
know it's a really old console, but still. You got to find ways to preserve your games. And kind of with that mentality, we've got some really great news considering, um, you know, retros and classics from PlayStation recently. There's been rumors for years about a plan to kind of compete with
Project Spartacus.
compete with Game Pass. Exactly. And I feel like it is a competitor and it isn't. There's three new updates that they rolled out in terms of plans that you can hop on. Not sure about the release dates yet for them. I imagine they are this summer, from what I remember hearing about. It's like June or something they're going to go into effect.
Yeah, June.
Um, Okay, cool. And there's just three tiers. Like the first tier, which is what everybody may already have if they're paying for PS Plus. Although I've seen many polls online, I see a lot of people don't pay for PS Plus, and it makes me interested. I'm like, man, I haven't been without it for so long, and I'm not even a multiplayer guy. Like I don't go online, and I'm not competitive. So, but I really enjoy playing, some games like some fighting games with friends online. I might hop on Destiny and literally do nothing. And I wonder if this is actually going to attract that crowd that doesn't have PS Plus. And hopefully it does. Just because there's some cool values here. Speaking of, you've got PlayStation Plus first tier, which is the essential plan, and it looks like you get your that's the default.
Basically, what everybody's used to. That's what
Right.
PlayStation Plus has looked like for the
And
last 5 years.
right.
Yeah, you get your couple games a month, you get cloud storage, discounts, and the online, which is required for
Exactly.
it.
So you have a, monthly PS5 game, so there'll be one, and then you've got your PS4 games that you're used to downloading, so they're going to kind of add on to that. But what's more enticing is having an entire catalog of PS5 games and PS4 games, and that kind of totaling up to 400. So they'll probably be kind of like, Game Pass and Netflix style, where, some games will have a rotation and others stay. But I'm excited with how many that they're starting out with. I do hope that they're not, shovelware kind of games, especially with the higher tiers. Let me go through features first, and then we'll talk about prices. So the PS Plus Extra is the one I just talked about, right? So we've got the 400. Yes, the Essential is the baseline one, but I was actually just talking about the 400 PS5 and PS4
Oh,
games, and
right, I
that
gotcha.
is the PS Plus Extra. And that one
Yes.
is going to include those, but then it's going to be missing the other features from the Premium, which is the third tier, and that's going to come at the most cost, right? And I believe that the costs are pretty reasonable. I mean, you got your 9.99 for your Essential, which is the baseline, which is what we're all used to paying, and that's the $60 a year. That's the one I've always done and been cool with, right? But then you've got 14.99 and then the 99.99 per year for the PS Plus Extra. You've got that nice pool of that's more of like the Game Pass competitor. And then the PS Plus Premium, I like this just because it has the PS1 and PS2 games inclusion, along with PSP, let's not forget. Um, and I am omitting PS3 just because it's just them kind of, shoving PS Now, which is being dropped name wise, but included on this Plus Premium plan. But
Right.
um, I'm I'm stoked for this, but again, uh, are they going to be good games? I hope that we've got our all stars, and I can go into that in just a moment. But we're gonna get 340 of those, so about 700 plus games total if you get that highest tier. And that comes at 17.99 monthly, and then yearly it's 119.99, which is pretty reasonable, I would say, if you care about the retro games, right? If you're not someone who's playing a lot of the older titles, or you're not interested, probably not going to do that one. I imagine the second tier will be the most popular tier for that reason, but I do like that we have this option. I do wish that we had a way to play or like a modular plan that we could kind of dip our feet into the PS1, PS2 games, even the PSP games too. Um, like if you just added like an extra dollar with the first plan or a $2 extra for the first plan,
Yeah.
and then now you got those retro games because I feel like kind of putting them, locking them away in the third tier.
Oh, they know what they're doing.
you know?
They know exactly what they're doing. That was
Oh
intentional.
yeah, I know. But yeah, so that's that. Are you interested in this? Does this make you pretty happy? I know you have a PS4, is that correct?
Yeah, I have a PS4. Honestly, I'm not interested. I'm actually planning on canceling my PS Plus just because I don't really play it online anymore. I've got two games on it that I
Yeah.
play, and it's the Kingdom Hearts collection
Okay.
and the Persona 5 Royals, as that still hasn't been ported to anything else, not even PC. But in terms of what they're offering,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be worth it. The premium one, like you said, they're kind of straddling you with the PS Now just so they can put it somewhere. And for the crowd that doesn't care about that, they're also throwing the PlayStation 1, 2, and PSP games. So that's kind of cool. There's a way to get the classic library. I think really the thing that makes this not a Game Pass competitor is the fact that they're not going to have day and date releases of their first party games on the service.
You're right.
So when, for example, Horizon Forbidden West, that's not going to be on this one until, and if it is going to be on this service, it's going to be added way later. So you still would need to buy those $70 games at launch if you wanted to play them at launch. Whereas Microsoft, I any first party Microsoft game that they ever release, I know I'm going to be able to play it immediately as soon as it drops. And with the whole rotating library thing, I know that every Microsoft game will always be
Yep.
on Game Pass, because that's another thing you have to consider too. Is unlike Nintendo Switch Online, for example, where they have their classic games, once
Forever.
they're added, they're added.
Right.
Like that's it; they don't come off. They're there. You will always have access to those games. Whereas with Game Pass, and you and I found this out the hard way, once it's removed from Game Pass, it removes it from your console as well, even if you already had it downloaded. And if you want to play it again, you have to basically rebuy the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how Sony handles that and what exactly they're going to do with their first party games and how quickly the turnaround is. If it's like a 30-day or even a 60-day exclusivity to where you have to buy the game to play it, but then after that 30 or 60 days they drop it on the PlayStation
Hmm.
Plus, I
Yeah.
think that would be okay. That's enough of a wait for me to say, all right, I'll wait 2 months to play this big game. That's fine. That's not a big deal. But if we're talking, if it's not like a standard, okay, well, you wait this long, we might add it 4 months from now, or maybe 6 months from now, or maybe never at all. So the ambiguity on it is kind of what gets me. So I'm not sure about that. And of course,
We also don't know if it'll stay,
exactly,
like
there's still a lot of question marks that need to be answered before I can really say if it's a good value or not. I will say though, if you do like the classic, the retro library that they are adding, 120 yearly is nice. I believe Sony actually said the reason they have a yearly option for all tiers is that for PlayStation Plus, 2/3 of all PlayStation Plus users pay for it in the yearly plan because you do save per month if you just drop it in one chunk. So that is something they do have on Xbox. You can't buy just a year's worth of Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate. It's just the 10 or 15 a month flat. So across a year, $15 a month, that's $180 a year. So every single one of these is still technically cheaper than Game Pass if you get the yearly version of it. So I do hope the one thing that this is going to bring is competition. Competition's great for the consumer.
hmm
I think this might have Microsoft reevaluate the whole Game Pass thing and maybe offer a yearly plan. Maybe they drop it for $139.99 for Game Pass Ultimate a year. So you save $40 if you get it that way. Or if you're doing the non-Ultimate where you're just choosing console or PC, $10 a month would be $120 a year. Maybe they let you buy that for $99.99 a month. So I'm hoping that they do answer back with something like that, because right now that is the one big leg up that Sony does have on them.
This is true. I Yeah, that's a really good point. I know we have Sony being ambiguous. That's so Sony. And I feel like
It could change too. It could change. You never know.
I don't know. I really care about I really care about the games. I care about the games, and we haven't heard anything, and I know certain copyrights get, like there's some, like, I want to play Gex again, I want to play Gex. I want to play some of the classic Crash Bandicoot games. I think that would be really fun. Most of those old titles may or may not be on there. I know there's a couple RPGs.
Have they actually name dropped any games?
That's why it's kind of like, it's spacey right now. We're just kind of like, so which games are we getting? Because those libraries are huge.
Right.
To say that we're getting 340, and that's a pool of PS1, PS2, and PSP games.
Right.
I heard like Crisis Core isn't going to make it because
Oh,
of like some copyright stuff,
yeah.
and like people are looking into like what games probably won't be on there, since we could look those things up. But I do hope we get some like classic RPGs, like I just want to get some of those things going.
That's another factor too. How is third party titles going to be handled? Game Pass does have a lot of third party support. You've got EA Play and Ubisoft, whatever their service
Oh,
is.
right.
Those are built into Game Pass, so you get all of their games automatically. You don't even have to question if it's coming to Game Pass. If it's developed and published by EA or Ubisoft, you're going to get it on Game Pass. So, like you mentioned, Crisis Core, that's a Square Enix game. So, what is the third party support going to look like here? Is it only going to be first party? Which I can't imagine. They didn't make 340 first party games for PS1, PS2, and PSP. So, there's got to be some third party
Yeah.
support, but I guess that's the kind of gray area that we need cleared up before we can say one way or another. It's interesting. I'll give it that. I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but it's interesting right now.
Yeah, and we'll just have to see it through and kind of wait around, I know there's opportunity there. I think as consumers we can be excited. I just if it was one thing that I wish we did have, though, was support like Microsoft have. I mean, you can't tell me that I can download, you know, I don't know, Dino Crisis or something on PS2 on my PS5, but if I have the disc, I can't just pop it in. Like that's I know that's not going to happen. But the fact that it's literally just one little disc read away.
It's so weird. We're in the era where Xbox has more consumer friendly practices than Sony. What a way to
Yeah,
turn the tables. Good for Microsoft, man. They're knocking it out of the park this gen.
it's true. And that's why I'm holding on to my One X until, I get around to getting a Series X, because I like to play a lot of those retro games, and I don't want to have, my 360 out just to play some a classic Xbox games, because I know the Series S just, there's nothing you can do to get it to play discs. So
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really nice too. It's a good console.
it is.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun to see. I know a lot of people are just fatigued with subscription services. I know with the big boom since like Disney Plus, where all of the like cable channels now have their own subscription. You got like Paramount Plus and ABC Plus and Peacock and all these other things. It seems like there's like 30 different subscription services now that people are just like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want 17 different bills coming every month. I want to just buy my game and play it. I know there's a big crowd out there that's on in that camp, so this new plan may not be attractive to them. And who knows? I mean, a lot of people are tired of the subscription services, so it's going to be interesting to see how successful this is for Sony and what changes, if any, they make to
Truly.
it to try to get it to be more enticing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of upcoming events, we got the Sonic movie coming out here soon, April 8th, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It's the theaters. I will be seeing it with the family on the 7th on premiere night, and I'm actually really excited. The marketing for this movie has been phenomenal. They've just everything. There's so many like references and nods to the games that like they really understand the source material in a way a lot of video game adaptations just completely miss the mark. We're so used to movies like that getting so Hollywoodified that it's all about the big actors and the cliche movie points to where it's like it's barely recognizable as the franchise it was. Things like the original Mario Brothers movie. Oh man. That's a trip to even think about. Like we've come a long way since then to where we're actually getting a movie that looks like the game that it's based on. Detective Pikachu also deserves a nod in that department as well. So what do you think, man? Are you excited to go see the new Sonic movie?
You know what? I think it's going to be kind of like okay, so the hype, I'm going to take a few steps back. The hype for it is astronomical, you're right.
It's
And
crazy.
I know the first game garnered its own, or I said game. Yeah, the first movie, and I know they're all like originals, like plot lines, which is great. So they're not based off of any games, but they're inspired by, and I think that's great. But I haven't myself yet watched the first Sonic movie, but I am loving how much attention it's gotten and praise just from everybody. It seems like a lot of fun, but it hasn't. I just haven't sat down and watched it. And the same thing happened to me with Spider-Man. I had been so out of the loop with Marvel, but when I kind of saw the rumors and Tom Holland really sucking at keeping secrets and everything for the months leading up to that, I
He
was
was
like,
so bad at that.
oh man, oh man. Like I remember watching how unhappy and stressed out Andrew Garfield was whenever he was asked it, and he did really good,
He did, yeah.
denying it. He did such a great job, and I'm like, man, they're all in this film, so I'm gonna watch every Marvel movie leading up so that I can get like a full experience thing. So before this new before this new Sonic movie comes out, I'll probably watch the first one, then watch the new one. But I don't know if I'll go to theaters. I don't know. It's one of those things where I wait a little while still, even when there's like a new release. I think the only thing I can't, I guess I'm lying because the Batman was one I did like just say,
Nice.
screw it, let's go. And I really enjoyed that. But yeah, it seems fun. I heard there was like a spin-off like Knuckles show. Do you know anything about that?
Um, oh, I didn't hear anything about that yet. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case though, because they did make an announcement that
Yeah.
they're going to expand beyond just the movies and they're going to have
Mhm.
other products and things like that. If you do want to catch up on the first Sonic movie, by the way, it is on Amazon Prime Video, so you can watch the full movie there without having to bootleg it or anything like that. And what I think is really cool about the Sonic 2 movie versus the original movie, the first movie, I mean, it's not like a cinematic masterpiece or anything, but the big story behind the first movie was the feedback from the fans. And we all saw that first trailer. It was hideous. The model for Sonic, it was like it was going down the path of the Mario Bros. Movie where it's like, oh my god, they don't have they ever played a Sonic game? Do they know what the character looks like?
It
And
was so bad.
the outrage to that and the fact that they delayed the film to change it and make it actually look good was amazing. And the movie itself was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was its own original story. Jim Carrey was really good as Dr. Robotnik in there. And then moving on to the second movie, there's a bigger focus on the actual, Sonic characters and lore. We see the Master Emerald, we see Knuckles, we see Dr. Robotnik looking like Dr. Robotnik, whereas the first movie was kind of just his transformation to that. Like he was just kind of a normal, I don't want to say normal. Nothing nothing normal about any of Jim Carrey's characters, but he was a regular looking guy that was just a little eccentric, and we got to see him transform into the Dr. Robotnik straight out of the games and the comics. And then in the second movie, it's looking a lot more game centric, which is awesome, and that's part of the reason it's getting so much hype. Is that they're really digging into that and actually drawing from the source material to make a really appealing movie for the fans. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to see it, to see what they do with that. And it's funny, one of the biggest criticisms of the movie, because a lot of the review embargo's up, most of the critics were complaining that there was too much focus on the Sonic characters and not enough focus on the human characters.
Ooh. Which is fascinating because they're introducing Knuckles with this one, which is played by Idris Elba, I think, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I don't. I mean, I feel like when you're introducing someone new, I mean, I know you've got Tails too. I haven't forgotten Tails is in this one
Yeah.
compared to the first one, but it's like, what? I mean, that makes sense. That the first one had Sonic, this has Tails and Knuckles, so I feel like that's expected.
Right. But how wild is that, though? It's a movie about the video game character Sonic, and they're complaining that there's focus
Hmm.
on Sonic. Like, that's exactly what fans want. They want more focus on Sonic and Tails and Knuckles and Dr. Robotnik, the characters, that the whole movie is based off of. So it was so funny to see, and they got flamed on all of social media for that take. Like, all the critics that
Yeah,
those are the movie guys, though. They don't care about video games.
right.
They're reviewing it from the perspective of a movie critic.
Of a critic, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I get it. Too much water.
exactly.
Three out of 3 out of 10.
That was exactly my thought. I'm like, okay. I mean that critic review just got everybody more excited for the movie. Like it had the opposite intended effect. It's gonna be fun to see.
Hey, and I guess I don't know how to say this lady's last name. I guess her name's Colleen O
Pauline O'Shaughnessy,
O'Shaughnessy.
yeah, the Tails
Okay,
voice actress.
that's amazing. Because I know like Steve Bloom played old Knuckles back in the cartoon days. So maybe he couldn't reprise his role this time around, but I think this is awesome that they have like some original characters like that. That's amazing. And then Jim Carrey doing a great job. It's exciting, very cool. We need more movies like this that do well. And hopefully this continues. It sounds like it will, so I'm there for it.
Indeed, it's gonna be an awesome time.
Yeah, yeah, that's good news, and I know some people are probably not entirely happy about the news we recently got for Breath of the Wild 2. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't see it as bad news, but I know a lot of people at face value are going to take it like that. But let's talk about it. What's the news?
Well, it does look like we are having a delay. And they did well, they had a very honest video just telling us that they wanted to take more time. They didn't give us a reason. They didn't say it was because of this. They just said, "Hey, we're gonna go ahead and push this to spring 2023," which is also, I already expected. Okay, if it comes out this year, it comes out at the end.
Right.
It's like a holiday release, but waiting a couple months, that ain't bad.
It's no big deal. It's kind of like with Legends Arceus. When everybody saw it was going to be a 2022
Mm,
title, they were like, "Oh man, we're gonna have to wait till March or April," and then it came out in January, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, might as well have just came out last year. That was close enough." I don't think it's too bad of a thing with the delay, and I do like the way you said that though. It was an honest video from the heart.
yeah.
They said they really want to make the game a really good experience, so they're going to take the extra time to really make it shine because the first game had such critical praise. They're really inspired to build off of that. And also, congratulations to Elden Ring for automatically winning Game of the Year now that it doesn't have to compete with Breath of the Wild 2.
I mean, I feel like Breath of the Wild really is just competing with itself. Let's be real here.
I know that was just a big meme that came out with the delay. It's like, oh well,
I
now we
know.
know who's winning.
It really is good for From Software not to have to go face to face with Nintendo this year. At least in that regard, I know other people are going to be doing other developers are going to be doing what they can to try to take the spotlight. But I can only be happy for success either way. And yeah, we got Arceus. We got Arceus really early, at least in the year, which is new for Pokemon releases. I think that was different, but I honestly am happy with delays I mean, 1.0 of Arceus was pretty great, minus some little things, like Charm, and stuff like that. But it's nice to see that we had like a little clip. They didn't just say sorry; they showed the Link from that game. Obviously, it's the Link that we know, but he's garbed differently. It was cool to see it that close with the Master Sword, or what's left of the Master Sword. I know there's some speculation with like
And theory's going wild.
the reveal trailer from like a couple years ago and how his malice, like maybe the malice that had his hand, maybe he was holding the master sword, but I think he is right-handed in this game, right? He is.
Yeah, he was right-handed in Breath of the Wild too.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it does line up. So something definitely happens to it. And it's exciting to think about it. Like I'm like, man, are they gonna do something with Fee in this game? Like, are they
I
gonna?
saw a lot of talk about that actually. Yeah, because they saw the way it was glowing. They're like, "Oh, are we gonna
Yeah.
get Fee?" And there's a lot of parallels to Skyward Sword with the floating islands and everything. So that would be a nice little twist if we got to see Fee back.
You know how Girahim was like a physical kind of, and we saw Girahim like that, and even Fee was like that at one point, where you could kind of see her pop out of the Master Sword. I wonder if we'll get like visuals like that. That'd be really cool. If there's just so many surprises that they can, and like I guess like the Sheikah slate maybe reprising its role or maybe not. I know there's talks about that. There's just so much with Breath of the Wild lore. Like I could sit there for hours with.
Right.
I mean, it's Zelda.
And another thing I want to point out in the trailer is something that Aonuma said kind of stuck with me. He mentioned that it's like, oh, in addition to the ground world, it also expands to the skies, but also even further than that.
Yeah.
He said that he hinted at something else going on with where we're going to get to explore. So are we going to get like an underground area since a bunch of these islands are breaking from the ground and going up to the sky? Are there going to be like caves where those islands used to be, or are we going to get to go? Here's a wild thought: underwater. What did he mean by that?
Swimming.
Yeah, like some swimming underwater. Like that would be really neat to see. What if the metal boots came back and there's going to be a whole underground or underwater area we can explore. I really want to know what he meant by that.
It's space.
Could you imagine?
I could
That would be
imagine it.
wild.
I I'm thinking about how would really implement it, where it's like, you know, obviously Skyward Sword lore is gonna take a big, place into this. Like, I know it came out like on Switch as a re-release, which is cool, but I feel like they're gonna touch on a lot of that lore and then bring new lore into it, and I just want to see new bad guys. Like I want some like callbacks. Like give me some cool callbacks to characters like, maybe some Twin Rova type characters or, something like that. I don't know. I want more, and I feel like this summer we're gonna get a cool little teaser again, or something.
Oh yeah, just because the game itself was delayed doesn't mean news of the game was delayed, and I still fully expect there to be a big segment of this at Nintendo's E3 timed Nintendo Direct. So we're
Yeah.
still going to see more. We're going to get a big blowout on it. And the thing about that video is every word was chosen very carefully. So he's hinting at something big there. And I can't wait to see it. E3 is just around the corner. We're about to hit April, so we've only got 2 more full months to get through until we're in the month of E3 in June. So we're almost there, just a little bit longer, and we're going to get some big news on what's happening. And maybe we're going to find some more info of what games could be filling the void that Breath of the Wild 2 would have been in had it released this holiday. So you mentioned Metroid Prime Trilogy earlier. Maybe we get some more info
Yeah,
about Prime 4, Bayonetta
that would
3.
be nice.
There's a lot of ways they could go about this, and I think it's a good idea for them to spread the games out a little bit here, because 2022, just with the games that we know about, is a really packed year for them.
I think it's great. I'm not even like. I think previous years I used to be like, oh man, what are they gonna come out with? What's gonna release that I really want? What am I gonna spend my time playing? Now there's just not enough time to play a lot of the games that I have, and it's like
Exactly.
it's a great problem to have, but at the same time, it's still a problem. So I'm sitting here like, oh, okay, well, maybe I could just get some time off when some of these bigger releases do come out and enjoy them. Like I'm excited about the Pokemon games. They're brand new. I'm gonna support Game Freak just because it's like, hey, we're going back to colors. That'll be fun. Not to linger on that too much, but I'm excited with some of the teasers that they gave us.
For sure. It looks like one of the more exciting releases in a while for them. I feel like they haven't had this kind of hype for a Pokemon game since the 3DS era, outside of Legends Arceus. But I mean, even
Yeah.
Legends Arceus, when it was first revealed,
Yeah.
it was looking a little rough, and people called it out for that, rightly so. But and then the game released, and everybody realized, wow, it's a really fun game. But with games coming out way later into the year, we're going to need something to play now. So one of the things that you could be playing while you wait for some of these bigger releases, just to fill in the gaps with smaller games, like classic games. We got some new Nintendo and Super Nintendo games added to the NSO uh, catalog here today, actually.
Ooh, what games?
We've got three new ones. We got two NES games, and we got one Super Nintendo game, which I'm really excited for. I kind of thought they were out of good games to add to the service, but I stand corrected here. The NES games are Dig Dug 2. I didn't even know Dig Dug had a sequel, so maybe I'll check that out.
Same.
Mappy Land. So for you Mappy Land fans out there, here you go. And for me, the big winner here are Earthworm Jim fans. We're getting Earthworm Jim 2 on the Super Nintendo app.
And the two for most of those older games were so good. So maybe Dig Dug 2 is like, maybe they chose that because it's like a really good version of the game. Because I feel like sequels back then were just like revisions almost of the first games in many ways, just because they got to improve so much of the gameplay. I believe I did play Earthworm Jim 2. I think I played it on like an old PC. This is cool. I like getting these just shadow drops.
Yeah, it's always a fun surprise when you see something like this happen. I always kind of forget about them, even when they're announced, just because they've already kind of added their big hitters, and they've kind of made it clear that there's not going to be any big third-party games. I know a lot of people are still calling for things like Super Mario RPG, the Final Fantasy games, Chrono Trigger, things like that, and I just don't think it's going to happen at this point. For the third-party games, that's kind of why they had the Sega Genesis. We did get three new Sega Genesis games
Right.
added a couple weeks ago, actually, as well.
Oh.
For if you had the expansion pass, we had Light Crusader, Super Fantasy Zone, and Alien Soldier. So we're getting a pretty decent, steady drip of games. They're pretty much going one a month for the Nintendo 64 games, and the last one they added, I believe, was F-Zero-X, which looks really good. They did a good job of upresing everything, cleaning out some of the textures, making sure it runs really well. So I got to say, with the expansion pass, with the way they're doing it, with the DLC, with Mario Kart to Booster Pass being part of it, it actually looks like a pretty good value now.
It does. I mean, Zero, be honest with me. Have you ever really launched the Genesis online?
I did to check out the Sonic games. I did to check out the Sonic games because I love the classic Sonic. I'm waiting for them to add Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles on there. That's when I'll probably really dive into
That
it.
was my first Sonic game.
Sonic 2?
3 and Knuckles.
3 and Knuckles, nice. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
pretty much the apex of the Sonic franchise, so that's a good place to start on, but also kind of disappointing because it only goes down from there.
I liked the 3D. I liked the Sonic 3D. What is it? CD? Is it CD? I think it's CD. I forget which
Sonic
one it
CD.
was. Yeah. No, it was 3D Blast. It was still
Oh, 3D Blast. Okay.
it was fun. It wasn't better. It was just fun and different because it was like a 3D game, and we didn't have a lot of 3D games on that console back then.
It was a little wonky, but it was a fun experience. But yeah, I'm hoping they add 3 and Knuckles to the Sega Genesis part because they announced a while ago, what was it, Sega Origins Collection?
Oh, really?
Where what was it called? It was like Sega Ages or something like that, where it's like a massive collection of all their games, and we haven't heard anything since then. So right now, the only way to play the classic Sonic games on the Nintendo Switch is through the Sega Genesis app, and we've only got Sonic 1 and 2 at this time. So it'll be nice to see. They're clearly updating it relatively frequently, even if there's not like a set schedule. So I'm sure they'll come eventually, but it's nice to see good games still being added to the NES and Super NES, even if we're not getting any big third-party stuff. Although Earthworm Jim is a third party, I think that's owned by THQ, something like that. So
That sounds right.
we're getting a little bit of support.
That is nice. I know I haven't really played a lot of them when it comes to the Nintendo Online. Like I've definitely tested them out, but like Majora's Mask, I think I played, and Paper Mario. But They're all pretty fun. I just like the online capabilities and the save states. I feel like that's just such a
Oh yeah.
nice quality of life to have. Other than playing them portably and having them on the TV, you know. But yeah,
It's nice to play them cleaned up too, because all the N64 games, especially, they up-resed them to 720p. Since it's
yeah,
3D polygon models, it doesn't take much to do that. They're already there in the game's files of how they should look if they were in a higher resolution. So it's nice to see them really cleaned up. It's too bad we're not getting widescreen support for a lot of them, but we didn't get that for the Mario collection anyway,
I
so
was just gonna say
it's a
that.
little bummer.
Yeah, we wanted it.
But at least they're putting some effort to cleaning them up and making them look better than they did when they were in an N64. And the ones that did have issues, like Ocarina of
Right.
Time, for example, had the weird water glitch and the input delay. They are improving them, so they're working on it. It's not just throwing a ROM in there and letting it go. So it is nice to see them work on that and provide some value to that outside of just the games.
I agree. Yeah, they fixed the fog and all that type of stuff. I do have a question about the. You said you played some of the Sonics on the Genesis online. Are they any different than what's in like packages we've played before? Like, is it better or different than like Sonic Mania?
Well, Sonic Mania isn't a classic game ported over. Sonic Mania is more like a love letter to the 2D Sonics. So it's I don't want to say it's like Super Mario Maker, but like Super Mario Maker's levels provided by Nintendo would be like the equivalent of what Sonic Mania is. Sonic Mania
That makes sense.
has some classic levels that are remixed, but there's also new levels in there as well, new mechanics, new sprite work, all that stuff. But like the ones that are in the Sega Genesis, strictly speaking, Sonic 1 and 2, they're exactly the same game that you would get in, say, Sonic Mega Collection back on the PS2 and the GameCube, or the original games on the Sega Genesis. There are no changes to them as far as I'm aware. No 16 by 9 support. No, you get the save states. I mean, that's something.
It is something because some of those games are really hard. As you play them, at least I know that the difficulty just starts spiking. And that's good to know. I honestly I remember playing Mania, and I hadn't played all the original Sonic, so I just thought like, oh, okay, so did they kind of bring? But so it's more like kind of like a mix mash and like a brand new flavor to those old games, which is great because I feel like this is like a Sonic podcast. Um,
Sonic Mania is great, by the way. If you guys have not played Sonic Mania, get on it. It's worth it. Sonic Mania Plus with all the DLC, I think, is like $20 on your console of choice.
yeah.
Fantastic experience for any 2D Sonic fans, and it's the highest rated Sonic game in like 15 years or something like that. So pick it up if you haven't.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's multiplayer. It like Zero said, it's on every console, and they probably have frequent sales. And so you just pick that game up. It's pretty fun if you like Sonic. I personally wish we had some of the 3D Sonics. I know I'm bringing 3D again, but yeah, maybe one day.
And like you said, this is now the Sonic
Yeah.
Sonic podcast. That's fine with Sonic 2 coming out. There's a lot of hype around the franchise, and we haven't even touched on the Sonic Frontier news. We got a new Sonic game coming out, a new 3D flagship Sonic game coming out that looks like Breath of the Wild, but for Sonic. So that's going to be fun to see once we get some more news later this year. We don't have anything outside that original teaser to talk about, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of Sonic content. It's fun to see, and I'm really excited to go check out that movie here on the 7th. But that's all the time we do have today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for joining me to talk Video Soldier. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kraken Skulls Gaming, and then hit the notification bell to be notified when a new episode drops. Also, feel free to drop a like, dislike, or maybe even a comment and talk video with us. Take care, everyone, and happy gaming.
Cheers, everybody.